And today we will be talking about the first 5 chapters in Anne of Green Gables by Ellen Montgomery. This was published over 100 years ago, specifically 115 years ago. Actually, let me check that to make sure I'm right. Yes, I was right. It was originally published 115 years ago, a long time ago. Yet it is a classic that has lived lived in and captured the hearts of millions of people. So I hope that you enjoy this amazing book. And I'm really liking the Anne series now. So I have made videos about Anne of Anne of Avonlea. And now today we'll be talking about Anne of Green Gables. So yay! Let's begin. So yeah, first 5 chapters. Now, if you have been Marilla and Matthew, do you think that you would have decided to adopt a boy? We later learned it was a girl, but back then they thought they were getting a boy. Would you have gotten one or not? So, it's not like I don't trust people, but Anne is one of the best people you can adopt in the world. She's really nice, but in general, I think I would like to know people a little bit. I have great respect for people who adopt children, adopt other people. I have great respect for them. I think that I would in the end adopt somebody, but if I'm Marilla and Matthew, especially because I need help, but still I do think that I would have to get to know somebody. It's not because I don't trust anybody. It's just before bringing a random person to my house, I want to know that person before they begin to live at my house. So that's it all. I'm pretty surprised that they actually did this. And if you have been Mrs. Rachel, and do you think that Mrs. Rachel's right? Do you think that in reality that the boy, there could be a chance that the boy that they were getting could be really evil? Do you think that that's a very likely point? I'm pretty sure Mrs. Rachel Lynde is drawing, she's saying, here are the 5 worst case scenarios in 100 or 200 scenarios that all went very well. You know what I mean? So out of 200, she just learned about the worst ones. It's not the newspaper's gonna report about the best about how adoptions went really well. They're only gonna talk about how adoptions went really well, really badly, how a kid burned down a house, etc. Right? So she probably just learned about the worst ones. She never actually learned about the good, about the good endings. So who knows? Anyway, let's continue. And also, what do you think? If you had been Mrs. Rachel, and we sort of know Marilla, right? She's very neat and tidy, and as we see from Mrs. Rachel's thoughts, Mrs. Rachel's a bit, she feels a bit sorry for the boy, right? She pities him. And what do you think? Do you pity him? We all know that he turns out to be her, but still, at that moment, do you pity that boy? Kind of. Actually, no, I don't know how bad the asylum is. Just from the name, it sounds really bad, and it is. Anne says so, right? But still, before that, I do think that it would be okay. It wouldn't be terrible. What I mean is it wouldn't be it can't be a terrible place, but still Still, yeah, I think that I would just pity him a bit because he's gonna have a very, very prim upbringing. Okay, but anyway, that was chapter 1. I didn't really talk much about it because, I mean, I thought that was the most important points, but still, yeah. How do you think that this orphan boy is going to be? Okay, chapter 2, Matthew Cuthbert is surprised. So, the first 2 chapters are all about surprise people. Mrs. Rachel Lynde, Mrs. Rachel Lynde, I don't know. Mrs. Rachel Lynde is surprised, Matthew Cuthbert is surprised, and Marilla Cuthbert is surprised. So, yeah, what do you think? Like, are you one of those people who like to stay, to yourself, or are you one of those really social people? And what do you think is like the better way? What I mean is what do you think is the better way for you? Why? Because Matthew is he likes to keep to himself, and he's especially uncomfortable around women and young girls. He keeps to himself. He's very shy. So now, what about you? I mean, I'm like half-half. I'm not amazingly social, but it's not like I'm not completely social either. I have a few friends. I don't have many friends, and I'm not amazingly social, but it's not like I'm not social either. So I'm half-half. Now it turns out that in reality it was a girl, right? They had asked for a boy and they got a girl. And if you had been Matthew, what would you have done? I think that, what would you have done? Would you have told her outright, or would you have waited for Marilla to explain it? I guess it all depends on your personality. If you're an outspoken person, if you aren't shy, then you would have probably said it. But yeah, so yeah, what do you think? What would you have done in Matthew's shoes? I would have just felt too sorry to just say it right then. She's in a really good mood, right? And so, I would just be like, oh, hi, so you're Anne, yeah, awesome. Okay, let's go. I wouldn't say, Anne, there was a big mistake. A boy was supposed to come. So, you're gonna be sent right back to the asylum. I wouldn't say that to her the second that she came back. That's just a bit too cruel. But, I would still, I don't know, at the same time, it seems sort of cruel because as we learn, she really talks a lot, right? And she marvels at the beauty of the island. And breaking the news after she's marveled at the beauty might be even more harsh. So if you think about it like that, what do you think? I just don't know. I wouldn't tell her. I don't know why. I would just let Marilla do the hard things. I'm not shy, but I just wouldn't have the heart to tell her. Though in the end, I do think that I would have told her outright. Actually no. Oh, never mind. I really cannot do this. But have you ever met somebody like Anne before? No, Anne. And what do you think? Do you think you would have liked to be Anne's, I don't know, friend or somebody who knew Anne, or you wouldn't be? Some people might say that she's talking too much, right? But I like talking. I like people who talk that much. And what I really like is that, she is just so... she has such a wide imagination, and she looks at the world in a way that nobody else really does. So yeah, what do you think? Do you think that you would like to look at the world through Anne's eyes? Yeah, Anne is just so positive. She really looks through the world in a way that's not just not negative. And I think that her imagination is amazing. For example, she looks through the world. She doesn't think about the bad things. She thinks about the good things. For example, and she has an awesome imagination. Look at this. For example, okay, look at this. I was beginning to be afraid you weren't coming for me, and I was imagining all the things that might have happened to prevent you. I had made up my mind that if you didn't come for me tonight, I'd go down the track to that big wild cherry tree at the bend and climb up into it to stay all night. I wouldn't be a bit afraid, and it would be lovely to sleep in a wild cherry tree all white with bloom in the moonshine. Don't you think you could imagine you were dwelling in marble halls? Couldn't you? And I was quite sure you would come for me in the morning if you did it tonight. So that type of thinking is completely different from like what normal people would think. Normal people would be like, why isn't he coming? Oh God, what am I gonna do? That's what most people would do, but not her. So I really like her thoughts. I like her imagination. What do I do? Okay. What do you think? Do you think that things are like just put in a very unimaginative way, like in the world? Like, for example, like and I'm just gonna read out loud. So there was like this beautiful place, right? There was this beautiful place. Actually, I'm just gonna read it. Quote, the avenue, so called by the Newbridge people, was a stretch of road 400 or 500 yards long, completely arched over with huge, wide-spreading apple trees planted years ago by an eccentric old farmer. Overhead was one long canopy of snowy, fragrant bloom. Below the boughs, the air was full of a purple twilight, and far ahead of a glimpse of painted sunset sky shone like a great rose window at the end of a cathedral aisle. I mean, yeah, you can see the thing in your mind's eye, can't you? And so, do you think that that people are just too unimaginative with not only names but like with a lot of the things in the world? And what do you think? Do you think that if you had been Anne and you learned that you weren't wanted, how would you feel? Remember, Anne came from the asylum. When she saw this place, how do you think that she felt? What about if you had been in her shoes? How do you think you would have felt? I think that I would have felt amazed. I would have felt awed, surprised, and I would be so happy because I was at the beauty of everything. I would be like so excited and so joyful. I would feel hope, right? Especially because I come from like a place like this. I mean, I'm pretty sure it wasn't like a horrible place, but it wasn't a good place either. But yeah. So I think that if I learned that I wasn't gonna stay there, yeah, I would be like traumatized. But I mean, I think that I would get over it pretty quickly. But yeah, I think that I would also cry because very disappointing. It would be very disappointing. Okay, anyway, chapter 3, Marilla Cuthbert is your prize. Now, Anne burst into tears, right? And if you had been Marilla, what would you have done? Would you have been like, okay, you can stay? Like, if you had been Marilla Matthew, would you have sent her back or not? I mean, I'm not a heartless person, and once I began to know her, I would say maybe you can stay, but for the while, like at the beginning, I would definitely be like, you need to go, because I mean, it's not like I'm a bad person, but it's just I wanted a boy and I got a girl. I mean, I'm not saying that's bad, but my point is I don't know her, and she just came. I mean, I would just get another person, but once I get to know her, then I would actually accept her. But at the beginning, of course, I think all of us would probably do that. And now, what do you think? Do you think that Anne spelled with an E is much better than Anne? Actually, and this is silly, but I really actually do like Anne spelled with an E. So if you have a Marilla and you first saw, and your first encounter, what would you think? I would think that, Anne is certainly eccentric. I mean, she's kind of nice, but she's eccentric and clearly different from the general population. And if you have been Anne and you were in the depths of despair, what would you have how would you have reacted? I think that I would have just went into bed and I would have just mulled it over. I'd be like, okay, I'm gonna have to accept my fate. And I mean, but yeah, I would be very, very sad, definitely, 100%. I mean, what do you think if you have an Anne, and you learned that that you were supposed to be sent back? How would you have felt? Do you think that you would have still liked to see the things like the white way of delight and the lake of shining waters? Do you think that you'd have still liked to see it, or do you think that you would have just, or do you think that you would have liked it if you had just been told in the first place? I don't know. I think I would have liked it if I had just been told in the first place, because all that excitement and stuff, I wouldn't have had as much of as a disappointment. I would still be disappointed, but I wouldn't be as disappointed. So, but still, it was nice when it lasted. But yeah, I would still like it better if I had just known that in the first place. So, and then Matthew was like, but I like her, right? And if you have Marilla, how would you have reacted to that? And were you surprised that Matthew was like that, or not? And also, finally, did you think while you were reading the book that Anne was staying? It's sort of obvious. First of all, why would the author put in that part of the book if Anne did not stay? If Anne did not stay, then was there any use in putting her in? And besides, Anne of Green Gables, and if you know the sequel, Anne of Avonlea, then you know that she's probably gonna stay there. Especially, it's sort of obvious, but still, if you hadn't known that, if you had just started reading and you didn't know that, you didn't even know the title, what do you think? Do you think that you'd have thought she would have stayed? I still would have thought that she would have stayed. And yeah, do you think that Marilla is suffering from company, or what do you think? I don't think that she's suffering for company, but I do think that, she's never been a mother before, so I think that would be, an experience for her. Maybe it will be hard, but I think that, it would be sort of a good experience for her. And, and I'm gonna read out loud the description. A lonely, heart-hungry, friendless child cried herself to sleep. So, her circumstances are very poor, right? So yeah, what do you think? Do you think that in the end, if you have an Anne, do you think you would have had any hope at that point? And yeah, so she's really I really felt sorry for Anne. I know that the story isn't real, but I still felt really sorry for Anne. Okay, chapter 4, right? So what do you think? What is your favorite type of morning? And do you think that mornings are interesting? I do think that mornings are interesting. There's a lot of scope for imagination, and also I like the fact that is the upcoming day is unpredictable and it is awesome. You don't know what's gonna happen, and that's fun to imagine. But at the same time, it's okay, I'm gonna have to do all of this stuff again. But in the night, you're sleepy, you're tired, but you're I am done. But in the morning, you have all these tasks in front of you. You're oh man, right? So that's one detriment to the morning. But other than that, it's okay. Do you think that you should name a geranium or not? I wouldn't like it if I was just a boy. So what do you think? Yeah, I do think that I would name a geranium. So but what? Yeah. So what do you think about Anne? She's peculiar and she's certainly different from other people, but still, do you think that that's necessarily bad? What do you think about her? I really think that she's nice and I really like her. I think that she's different, but in a good way, and I'm glad that people are different. If people were all the same, it would be a very boring world. If there weren't people like Anne to spice things up, it would be very boring, definitely. But yeah, so do you think that, yeah, so what do you think? Do you think that Matthew is going to stay firm on her point, and in the end, will Marilla break or not? Okay, chapter 5, Anne's history. So they go to Mrs. Spencer's house, right? So that they can learn about how the mistake happened. Let's see. Wait, actually, sorry, I just wanted to see one thing. Okay, yeah, but why do you think that Marilla was impacted by Anne's history, and if so, why? I think that she was, because she really realized how much Anne had suffered, how much, and how lonely and friendless she was. I mean, she really was impacted so much, right, by her childhood, and I think that really will. And do you think that will play a role in Marilla deciding whether or not to keep Anne? If you have been Marilla, how do you think that you would have, replied? I think that I would feel really sorry for her. I would feel a little ashamed of myself that I wouldn't be keeping her, and I'll be like, maybe I'll, be really sad that, she would have to go. But in the end, yeah, what do you think? Do you think that she's going to go? How do you think that the mistake happened? Do you think that Anne is ever going to find a place where she belongs? And yeah, so what do you think? And also one fun fact. So Anna's red hair. What do you think is your biggest fault? Like, I'm not saying that you should start pointing out everything that's wrong about you. I'm just saying, like, Anne really hates the thing about her hair. Is there anything that you don't like about yourself? If you do, I mean, that's like bad. I'm trying to say, try not to hate yourself. So yeah, what do you think? I really don't have anything that I would say. Just maybe a few less freckles. Like, Anne, I totally agree with that. I need less freckles. Yeah, Anne, you're awesome. Yeah, she really just tries to get the freckles off. Like, especially in there's a big consequence to that in Anne of Avonlea. I'll talk more about that later. But anyway, I hope that you enjoyed these first 5 chapters in Anne of Green Gables by L.M. Montgomery. This is an amazing classic that I have really loved, and I hope that you enjoyed this book as well. I'll see you next time in more videos about everything from books to read alouds to news. So yeah, I'll see you next time, and have a great rest of your day.